Thank you everybody for joining us again on Reinventing Mental Health, where we are moving beyond symptom management to finding root causes for why the mental health symptom is presenting for you. Today, I have with us Warren Phillips. He is the creator and the podcaster of Non-Toxic Dad and also part of Revelation Health. So, Warren, tell us a little bit about you and what you're doing.
But what am I not doing is the question, Mary. I am definitely a man possessed on a mission to see people get their lives back, see they get their mental health back, their families back, connection, get out of depression, get their energy, sleep better, and really get connected with God and nature in their heart again. So that's my mission. It's a big one. And I'm honored to have people like you on the ground floor that are doing the right things and helping people. And so it started with me, like many of us, getting so sick. I had to leave my job in Montana. I was depressed. I wasn't sleeping at night. I was even having night terrors. I was sound sensitive. I couldn't be around. I was like an autistic adult, essentially. I couldn't be around other people. Everything annoyed me. It got so bad at work, I had to quit. And now I cleaned up hazardous waste for a living. I always knew in my gut, and you got to follow your gut, by the way, guys, watching this. You have to follow that intuition, because a lot of the times we're being lied to because people want to make money off of us, right? And that's just how life is, and they don't really have the answers, and we have to listen to that intuition and get quiet so we can listen to what God in the universe is saying. And I ignored that and continued to do the wrong things, and expose myself to mercury, heavy metals. I was working for the U.S. Forest Service, Army Corps of Engineers. I was Army Corps of Engineers cleaning up federal use defense sites, all the toxins, underground storage tank removals from gas stations when those things leak, by the way, into the environment all the time. So every gas station that you go to leaks, and you get almost every time you fill it up, if it doesn't have vapor extraction, like in California, you're pretty close to your permissible exposure limit of benzene if you fill up twice a day just from smelling that gasoline. So pro tip, walk away from your filling nozzle if you can. I like to shove the cap in there and get away. It's a pretty nice, nasty exposure. But anyway, moving on. So sick. Had to move into my parents' moldy basement. I couldn't even go for a short walk. That's how much fatigue I had, how much depression I had. I had zero. And if you suffer with depression and anxiety, you get this. No one else does, but you literally can't find any joy. Zero motivation. Your hormones are so dysregulated. Your mitochondrial energy is so low that you have nothing to offer yourself or others. It's like swimming in and drowning in molasses. Like, I don't know how else to explain it, but it's a very, very dark place. And I've been there. So this is why I'm so passionate, is because I did cry out to God in those times. I did want to take my own life, but I asked for answers and help. And eventually, probably about 5 or 6 years later, I was actually reading my Bible. And not to say I'm like some super religious person, but then I was really, I guess I would say I was more religious than I was spiritual. I would say I'm way more spiritual than I am religious. At this point, I don't think I'm religious at all now. Actually, I kind of kicked that to the curb, but I'm definitely connected. And it's a breath work, by the way, one of the greatest ways to lower your anxiety, right? It's been a great gift. It's called pranayama, or cyclic sighing. There's some Harvard research on it, but it's the number one. We can talk shortly about that. I'm sure Mary already knows that trick. Really a great way to put you into your parasympathetic. I wish I had that tool, but I was told that was demonic. So we're moving on from that. That's kind of crazy, right? Some of these Eastern tools that have been around for millennia, and we're told that they were wrong, and they're actually the healing methods that are in alignment with our body. But circling back around, here I am, completely dysfunctional, and I was reading my Bible, and I remember reading the scripture that I used to read, God, heal my body that I may praise your name once again, because I'm effing pissed, right? I was so angry. It's a great way to get rid of religion, is get really sick, because you realize you can't pray anymore. You can't fast. You can't do all the fancy. You can't go to church. You're so chemically sensitive. You can't be around people because you can't look them in the eye, and you get so much anxiety. You can't even freaking drive your car. You're so sick. You can't go to the grocery store and enjoy Whole Foods and a dinner with a friend or a cup of coffee. So I've been there. And so when I say I'm on a mission, this is why. So I'm just doing everything I can to reach people with Non-Toxic Dad. We're reaching tens of millions of people every month with the non-toxic message. We're my new podcast, Non-Toxic Living. So that's kind of my story. The good news is, after living in my parents' moldy basement and getting into functional medicine and coaching functional medicine doctors on detoxification, I got the pleasure and honor of meeting Mary. And we were supposed to do a podcast, but the hotel busted us. So back to you.
Very, very true. So, like most of the amazing people that I meet inside of the health space, the ones that are doing the most amazing work are people that have had their own journey or have had a family member that went on a journey. My own story was my son was vaccine injured. We ended up having to use detoxification as one of the ways to help get this stuff out of his body and his brain so that we could return him to health. And we used a whole bunch of different binders, but one of the favorite binders that we used was actually zeolite. And that was a huge part of his path to healing. And we know inside of the functional health space that toxic burden is one of the big reasons why we have so many sick people. We live in a hugely toxic world today, whether it's our water, our food, the air that we're breathing inside of our homes. We think, all of our appliances and our furniture and our counters are supposed to be safe, but they're not. They're actually leaching toxins into our air. So walk me on the entire path of your journey for getting toxin free, or as toxin free as you possibly can.
Yeah, it takes years. I was non-toxic dad 16, 17 years ago, older than that, 18 years ago. But I had friends, just because I was so sensitive, I was forced to think about everything and look at every label, because I was getting very in tune with my body at this point from doing all the different things. And we can explain some of the modalities that I used to get well. But I had friends giving me stamps, Warren approved, before like Bobby approved, and there was Warren approved. And now it's someday I'll do non-toxic dad approved. Who knows?
Yeah.
So let's take a step back. Where are all these toxins coming from? Well, we took a right turn in the Industrial Revolution, or a backwards turn away from nature, honestly, away from God, into petroleum-based medications, cleaning agents. If you've watched, I'm trying to think of the movie. Oh, it's so good. But anyway, the Tupperware revolution, where they were selling Tupperware door to door, like all the plastics that came into our world, and petroleum-based fragrances and toxins, where all these things were from nature before. We use natural things like whale vomit and essential oils, and now we're using these chemical cocktails that can have hundreds, if not thousands, of different chemicals that are known neurotoxins, that are known to cause cancer, that are known hormone disruption, which can lead to mental illness. Right. And these things just got approved massively, right? You think drug, they don't do enough trials with the interactions of drugs. Well, they don't do enough trials with interactions of chemicals and what they do to our body. So there is an ubiquitous, and this is what the research says, ubiquitous amounts of toxins, neurotoxins, carcinogenic compounds. We got completely away from nature. We went all to synthetic. And the closer you get to synthetic, the more toxic you're going to be. Even our clothes turn plastic. Why? Price point, right? The dyes in our clothes. Why? Price point. Azo dyes, highly neurodegenerative. The very clothes that you're wearing could be causing you to have mood issues, if you will, totally linked to brain inflammation and cell death and cytotoxicity inside of your body. Yet it's cheap and it's accepted. So everything that we have has now become synthetic, and they're marketed and branded to be healthy and safe, and they're not. Down to the counters that you're wiping and cleaning.
So you're talking about clothes, but it even goes further than that. Like, it goes to our sheets, and the fact that, back in the olden days, if we want to call them that, when you were in the hospital, you were on linen sheets, and they took you outside onto a sun deck during the course of the day so that you could get sunlight. And we right now have gotten totally away from that. I have entire generations of kids that come into my office. They're not going outside to play. So they're getting no sunlight. They are inside for the school day all day long. They've only got 20 minutes for lunch and recess. So they're supposed to scarf down this toxic food that they're eating and then get 5 minutes of sunlight if they're lucky. And then they go home to video games. So it's
with blue light that causes neuro, and the flicker as well, that causes neurodegeneration and all kinds of really bad stuff for your brain, right? The flickering, the frequency causes oxidative stress. The blue light causes oxidative stress in your body. in your brain, in your eyes, in your neurology. It's super toxic. And I love that you bring that up, is because that's a great example of, again, how we got away from nature. We're using low E glass that blocks the infrared spectrum, which is the very thing that drives we are biophotonic beings, and we need that light spectrum to drive the Krebs cycle in our bodies, in the mitochondrial function, right? So everything that we're doing, slathering sunscreen, right, to protect our children, to protect our children that have neurological dysfunction, we're listening to the mainstream, and they're saying nature is dangerous, bacteria is dangerous. Let's use quaternary compounds to clean, so that our kids have don't get sick from some crazy bacteria. We are not at war with nature. We're in symbiotic relationship with nature, and we're told to get away from it and take double placebo blind trial drugs for our children instead of just getting them in the sunlight. So that's everything that I had to learn. I had to unlearn all the brainwashing that drives the economic engine of America and start living in relationship with nature. And quite honestly, I'm just starting to find that rhythm. I was still wearing plastic clothes probably 2 years ago. So I'm learning as you guys are learning. So what are some of the biggest things that I learned to help get my life back? I had to get a VOC free home, a volatile organic compounds, which are off-gassed from your furniture, your carpet, the paints in your homes, from the insulation in your walls, from the cheap, generic, nasty drywall that should be banned. And a lot of other countries don't use it, because even China, they use magnesium board a lot, which doesn't grow mold. You can soak it, doesn't grow mold, and it doesn't off-gas volatile organic compounds in any way. Formaldehyde, these carcinogenic compounds. I would predict in the next 10 years, there's going to be so many lawsuits against drywall, like asbestos, because of the paper backing and how it's made and the chemicals in it, that there's going to be lawsuits, and there's going to have to be a redesign of how we build homes. It is making people sick. That's why I recommend that people loof their home on the daily, where you open your windows and do rapid acceleration and ventilation change. Open your windows up, cross ventilation 5 to 10 minutes, and allow an exchange 2 to 3 times a day. It's called, I can't remember, it's like Lufting, which is, they do it in Germany and in Europe, because our homes are so tight. And as your home is tight, think about someone smoking in your home and just filling your home up all day. So there's these invisible toxins that are inside of your home that are making you sick. Plus, as you breathe, you're producing carbon dioxide, which makes you fatigued. Oh, and you have low E glass, so you have no mitochondrial energy, so you're getting fatigued. So I had to learn to clean up my airspace without growing mold. So I was lufting a lot in my home. Then I got an energy return ventilator, but I was up in my attic sealing all my ductwork so I didn't suck in all the formaldehyde. I was sealing all my cabinetry with sealants to knock down the emissions of gas. So I had to get my indoor air quality well, and I had to get rid of all the mold in my life. I had to get rid of 70% of the homes have mold. I have a docuseries called Homesick Home. I actually just took it off. I will be putting it back onto my membership site, Non-Toxic Living. And so that was my first thing. I had to get my home safe. And that meant get rid of all fragrances, using natural things, not being fooled by method or these other ones that still use plant-based cleaners, but they're putting fragrance in them. Fragrance is probably one of the most toxic things that you can have in your home. I would say it's one of the number one things that people have in their home, because their dryer sheets down to your garbage bags, to Febreze, Glade plugins, all your synthetic cleaners, your skincare, your perfumes and colognes. These are the things that I had to get rid of and learn. Like when I was first sick, I was still putting on old cologne that you didn't want to get rid of from high school, like Jupe and Polo and Dracar Noir and all these nasty neurotoxins. And I had to learn that I didn't want to get rid of them because I didn't want to spend the money, even though, like, waste the money, even though I knew I was chemically sensitive. It was this weird psychological game that I had to learn, but eventually wiped out all that, ate clean, got rid of the mold, and then obviously start taking binders, breaking up the hepatic biliary recirculation of toxins, which I'd love to talk about today, because I think a lot of practitioners really get this wrong, driving phase 1 and phase 2 detoxification and making people sick. Phase 1 mobilizes toxins. Phase 2 neutralizes and immobilizes, neutralizes and packages toxins. But a lot of those, especially the fat soluble, get reabsorbed through your portal vein in your bile duct, 95% of that bile, and a lot of those toxins causing toxic recirculation. And this is why so many people remain sick. So it came down to cleaning up my environment, eating clean, getting rid of the mold, getting rid of the biotoxins, getting rid of all the things that were trashing my endocrine system, my mitochondria, my neurology, causing brain inflammation, neural inflammation, got the silver amalgam fillings out, got out the root canals, try to just do all the things that were causing inflammation in my body to reduce, got rid of gluten, which is really a glyphosate problem, in my opinion. All those things. So did the diets, grain-free, anything to reduce inflammation, drive up mitochondrial energy, and completely remove toxins from my life. And get good fats, cellular membrane, body bio. I'm probably saying everything you do in your clinic to get your clients well.
Okay, so you said you want to talk about phase 1 and phase 2 detox. So let's jump into that. I recently just put out a book called The Basics of Functional Mental Health. And one of the pillars in determining mental health symptomology has been toxins. It's been that for a very long time. And it's a discussion that's not happening inside of the mental health space nearly enough. It's not happening in the regular medical space either, but definitely not happening in mental health enough. So tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, well, I'm excited that you're doing that. I think when we first met, we were pretty fired up because you're one of the first folks in the mental health space. I remember our conversation. I was so fired up that you understood the connection where a lot of docs just don't. They still don't. Even with detoxification, they don't get it, right? When they're trying to fix people's guts, they're not addressing toxicity, but it's the glyphosate and mercury, that's trashing their microbiome, because these bugs are killed by the same toxins that are killing your cells, and you're more bugs than you are cells. And we're not addressing that. And we know our mental health comes from our gut. Right. So how can you have a healthy gut without removing the toxins that are destroying the bacteria that give you the neurotransmitters? It's your second brain, for crying out loud. It's 60 to 70% of your immune system. It's crazy, but it's ignored. And I've asked these questions to therapists. They're absolutely clueless. And when we know there's documented evidence of what this does to people's neurology and how it trashes their mental health. Look, remember,
I would even argue that it's your gut is actually your first brain and your brain is your second brain, because it all starts in the gut. And if we're not feeding that right and we don't have the right environment, your brain is not healthy at all.
It's true. Your bacteria could be more manipulative to your hormonal health and mental health than your actual brain itself. Because if your bacteria aren't speaking and turning on and off genes and firing off certain hormones and driving certain reactions in your body, you are not healthy. So if you don't have a good health, and let's look at the science, a good healthy microbiome, you have a healthy person. You have a diabetic fingerprint of a microbiome, you're a diabetic. If you have a fingerprint of someone who has neurological dysfunction and depression, there's a certain microbiotype for that. These things match up, right? And you need certain bacteria for certain neurological benefit. And there's actually neurologically beneficial bacteria, neurobacteria, if you will. So you're on it, Mary, because you had a sick kid and you had to get him well, right? This is what happens when you're faced with, some of the greatest life challenges, and you're a strong, let's just be honest, pissed off mom. So, okay. So phase 1, phase 2 detoxification. Phase 1, we know the cruciferous vegetables, you can take glutathione, that can work in phase 1 and phase 2. Phase 1, mobilization. Phase 2, gluconation, conjugation, actually. But gluconation is one of the things you can do, sulfonation, gluconation, but it's conjugation. So mobilization, essentially neutralization, and packaging in phase 1, phase 2. So when we're eating stuff, right? And we're told to do cilantro or kale or these high sulfur containing vegetables like cauliflower and Brussels sprouts. Like, these things drive detoxification. If you juice, right, that drives a ton of phase 1 detoxification. But that's mobilization. So it's driving these pathways that mobilize toxins in your body. So great. Now your body has to deal with them. So you don't want to over mobilize. And when if your phase 2 is backed up, you need certain nutrients to neutralize these toxins. And then you need other nutrients, say glutathione being one of them, glycine, glutamine. Like, there's all these different amino acids, and it's very expensive to your body. So a lot of doctors are into giving supplements that drive these two things, and it's hard to get them in balance. So if you're driving a bunch of mobilization and you're in a dusty, dirty home from 40, 50 years of toxicity, or even 5 years of toxicity because your mom just dumped all of her toxins into you in utero. So you're born toxic, and the evidence is clear of that.
Yep.
Right? Tons of studies and biblical cord studies showing hundreds of carcinogenic and neurodisrupting compounds coming right through the cord blood into the baby.
Yep.
So we're born toxic. We're loaded in these dusty homes. A lot of our storage compartments are our fat cells because our body gets overwhelmed. It's smart. It stores them away, just like we all do in our homes. They're shoved in closets, and then we mobilize those toxins. We open up those the closet. All the shit's falling everywhere. It's kind of like Cheaper by the Dozen. I don't remember when they came in on that Cheaper by the Dozen 2, when they shoved all this stuff and they opened the door and all the stuff falls out. That's what we're doing on inside our bodies, driving phase 1, or thinking a dusty old mansion, and you come in with a leaf blower and you're creating dust everywhere in the home, but you don't have enough phase 2 to grab that dust and drop it to the floor, essentially, right?
And people actually feel sicker, and they'll stop actually because they don't understand and have that phase 2 process.
Yep. You feel absolute crap. And then say you have a great balance system. Say you can go in and you can grab all the stuff that's coming out of the closet. You can neutralize all this dust, and that's great. Then it drops into, for the most part, it can come out through your sweat. It can come out, volatile organic compounds will come out through your breath. Think alcohol, a poison. Why does your breath stink? Is because your body's off-gassing toxins. If you accidentally ingested some gas, which I've done, doing when you do, you suck on a tube, and what's that called? It's a pressure change. What causes, I can't think of the method, but essentially creating a lower pressure to higher pressure and dropping gas out. I don't know what.
I know what you're talking about, but the name's not coming to me.
It'll come to me.
Yeah.
But I've drank it. So and you're breathing out gasoline. Those are volatile organic compounds: benzene, toluene, ethylbenzene, xylene, highly carcinogenic, by the way.
Yep.
So after you mobilize and neutralize and compartmentalize these toxins, a lot of those toxins, and not if you're not watching live or on YouTube, it goes through your liver, and your liver processes those toxins through mostly phase 2 is happening here, and then it takes the water solubles and it sends it to your liver for you to urinate it out. So that's great for the water solubles, and it'll even take some fat solubles and turn it into water solubles, and it wants to get rid of them. But a lot of those toxins, the fat solubles, especially things like pesticides and herbicides and mycotoxins, they get dumped out through your bile, which if it's just a little bit, it's fine. Your body will dump that through your upper small intestine, through the bile, and then it'll travel along your small intestine, and then some of that bile will be discharged through your large intestine, and you'll poop it out. Right. But a bulk of that bile is reabsorbed through the hepatic portal vein back into your liver, and that's called enterohepatic circulation. And toxins literature shows this in the detoxification process, a lot of that bile has those fat soluble toxins. So when you reabsorb them, they're being thrown back into the liver. It has to typically reconjugate, use all these resources to try to get rid of these toxins, stressing out your liver. And a lot of these toxins can be uncoupled, unconjugated, and recirculate back into your body, back into your bloodstream, because they're literally coming through your bloodstream again, through the portal vein, through the portal vein, back into your liver. And this is called enterohepatic recirculation. And this is where everyone gets detox wrong. This is one of the biggest areas. And they're giving things like fulvic acid, which are great mobilizers of toxins. They can bind a little bit of heavy metals, a little bit of glyphosate. Fulvic acid actually can be small enough to get into your blood. So they're a great support. But I would say that they're 50% a mobilizer of toxins. That's why when people take this, they can feel like crap.
Yeah.
Even the liquid fulvic acids. Now you can take humates, a sister, but a bigger or big brother that don't eat the gut, and they can bind a little bit of this bile, but they're not the best at it. They're really not. They're like first grade level binder of bile. And this is what you need to do to break up hepatic biliary recirculation, is to not give yourself more mobilizers, which a lot of these things are. You want to take something, and this clays can bind a little bit of bile, but not really that great. but certain fibers can. And the number one by far in the literature, because it actually, if you take enough of this, it'll lower your cholesterol by binding so much bile in your body. As a matter of fact, the study that I discovered, and I discovered this, I think I told you this, that my physician, when I was mold sick, Dr. Richie Shoemaker, was giving me cholestyramine to bind this up. And this is a cholesterol lowering drug doing the same thing. He accidentally found that this was making people well that were sick from the Pocomoke River and the Pfiesteria outbreak, which had a wicked biotoxin. So they gave this to get rid of, because it constipates you, these swollen plastic particles in your gut, they bridge and stop you from pooping yourself, and getting dehydrated and really sick. It could kill you, actually. And he gave this to his clients. And then not only did they stop their diarrhea, but all their symptoms went away, all these neurological symptoms, the brain fog, the sleepless nights, and people just start feeling great. So I discovered 18 years ago now that carbon can lower cholesterol in an old study. Now carbon, there's tons of studies that show this. So that's one of the missing things. You can drive phase 1 and phase 2, and I believe in supporting it. But if you're not taking a true binder that can bind up that bile, you're going to be making people sick. And the other thing that they do is they give something like this for in the gut to bind heavy metals, like zeolite. But this is the number one most contaminated binder on the planet. Why? The better the binder, the more contaminated it's going to be in natural environments. This is a natural crystal that's made from volcanic ash, a bunch of heat, temperature, steam, all these things, typically in either saline ponds or lakes near a volcano. But this stuff takes a really long time, millions and millions and millions and millions of years to create these crystals. And sometimes I won't get into the science of it all, but anyway, they are the greatest binder of heavy metals. Wonderful. But there's so much heavy metals in here. There's probably 100 times more heavy metals bound in this than even in a clay, definitely in a carbon, but it doesn't leave your gut. So it can't, and it doesn't bind bile, but it's completely inert and it doesn't affect your microbiome, your microbiology. It just comes in and out. So this is, we can get into cytodetox, but if you could put binders instead of like fulvic acids into your bloodstream, things that the science show that you can grab a toxin and render it and get it out of your body without putting it through this process, phase 1, phase 2. So essentially skip phase 1, phase 2 altogether for your body to remove the toxin through its phase 1, phase 2 detoxification, bowel dump, urine, sweat, breath, but bind it and neutralize it in the bloodstream before it can have all these, before your body has to waste all these resources getting rid of it. That's where I like things like zeolites, and that's where my patent comes in, and I'll read it to you at some point of what it's created to do and how it supports the body to detox, and probably why you're seeing some of the great results that you're seeing in your clinic.
Yeah. So I do want you to talk about the Cyto Detox. That is one of the products that I use inside of my office. We have kiddos that come in, and because when they walk in, they are black and blue underneath the eyes. We've got behavioral issues. We've got ADHD struggles. We already know, before I've done any lab work with these kiddos, we already know that they have a toxic burden. So that's one of the first things that we will reach for with these kiddos as we're going through the lab work. I do always want to make sure that we are starting the process slowly with kids. I don't want to make somebody sicker. So making sure that we're picking the right products and trying to go after some of the right things. So I gather a full family health history going back to great grandparents. Because like you said, with that toxic burden coming from mom, we know that toxic burden actually comes back from multiple generations. And there is some research saying it goes back as far as 14 generations, which is just crazy.
I believe it. A lead that your great mother was exposed to can literally be in your child. It's
absolutely
crazy.
So Cyto Detox is one of my favorite products to use with kiddos, and we're seeing wonderful results, behavior changes, improvement within sometimes a few days. I have seen kiddos on the autism spectrum that have such a huge toxic burden. It takes us a little while, but we do end up getting words. And we have seen definite improvement just across the board with all of these kiddos. So tell us a whole lot more about this particular product.
Yeah, and I didn't even know we were going to talk about this, but you're because I'm not the best At very few podcasts do I talk about this on, and I'm starting to now, especially because I did my own little study. I was up in prayer, and I think I told you this off camera.
Yep.
And as I was praying, I heard what I believe was God say, you need to run a small study with a particular medical doctor called Dr. Randy, who's a really good friend of mine. And I called him up and he said, same thing. It's like, I've been thinking about you. Any way I can help you, Warren, because at the end of the day, I'm 51 years old and I just want to connect with good people. Right. And you're good people, Mary, and Dr. Randy was good people. And we can't do this alone. We need each other. You know, we really do. And that was kind of the message that I was hearing when I was in meditation, actually coming out of pranayama breath work. During pranayama, this came up because when you get quiet, God speaks loudly, encouraging, loving, kind words, and sometimes great ideas, you know, whether that's coming from my unconscious or how that's being released. I'm not going to claim that, you know, I have some higher power speaking to me about everything that I'm doing. I'd like to think so in a lot of cases, because it does. I do see miracles coming out of breath work. Again, pranayama, real miracles, like crazy stuff, like just meeting a random guy I needed to forgive that stole $25,000 off me in Costco parking lot and having an amazing moment with him and his son and asking him for forgiveness instead of me, you know, and he's like, what? You know, I stole $25,000 off of you. You know, you should be like beating me up right now. I'm like, no, like how I handled it, you know, I shouldn't have done it that way. I should have asked you what was going on in your life that you would steal $25,000 away from a friend. I wanted to know what was going on. You have a son. Do you see the switch? You know, I mean, it's just a big difference that happens. So Dr. Randy, Heart Connected, met him at a different HEA event, Health Experts Alliance event. And we ran this study and we saw just crazy results in symptom reduction and some of the same results that you saw in children in your clinic. So it's so cool that we're talking about these things. But why? Why does this happen? When you support the body's natural ability to detoxify and help with true binders and break up hepatic biliary circulation of a lot of these toxins, when you're putting true binders that are small enough to be in the bloodstream and even at the cellular level that can permanently bind and neutralize these toxins inside of someone's body, you're really going to knock down indirectly a lot of inflammation. A lot of things are pro-inflammatory. Mercury, you can look up the Calgary study and mercury, and they're so neurodegenerative. They'll literally shrivel up nerve tissue. They're neurotoxins. That's why when they lined felt hats with mercury, they created Mad Hatter's disease, which I think we all know about Mad Hatter, right? Even back to the movie with
Alice.
What is it?
Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah, Alice in Wonderland. Mad as a Hatter, the Mad Hatter's disease. That's from mercury because it's so neurodegenerative. And all the studies show it, right? So this is crazy. It's so bad for your neurology. And they used to say you can't heal your brain. You absolutely can heal your brain.
Oh yeah.
So these toxins, these neurological toxins, if you can get them out of your body, your brain can start healing. The inflammation can stop dropping. They're also endocrine disruptors. And we all know that when our hormones are off, our energy's off, our behavior's off, everything is off. Like you get it, right, guys? I mean, everyone, I don't have to explain the deep science here. When you have this endocrine disruption, your testosterone's low, your estrogen's low, or you're not getting rid of certain estrogens. The other thing that these toxins do is, especially mercury being one of the worst, and they're now taking mercury and aluminum out of vaccines. I don't care what you believe on vaccines or not, but praise the Lord, we're no longer putting deadly amounts of neurotoxins in vaccines. And here's why they do it. The reason they do it, the only reason they do it, there's two reasons, but the main reason is to make the vaccine cheaper, because now you can triple double stick, because mercury kills everything. Let me say it again. Mercury kills everything. I remember cleaning up a grain silo that had mercuric oxide. They used to coat grain in mercuric oxide, which is a oxidized chemistry of mercury, and they put it on grains because when they plant, they get higher yields. No fungus, no bacteria. If a rat ate it, it would kill it. It's more deadly than arsenic or a mouse or a bug. It's a pesticide, herbicide, anything aside, a raticide, right? A roticide. It kills everything. And you put that same thing that kills everything. And in some doses, like with the what's the measles, mumps, rubella?
MMR,
yeah. The amount that they get with multiple sticks would exceed any limit that an adult let alone, I think that they ramped it up to the size of an elephant that would need to be able to take to be completely safe. It's such a high amount. So I'm so happy that something, and they started to take it out and they put it back in. Like, this has been a back and forth battle for a long time. They still allow it in mercury amalgam fillings, not in other countries, but in America, because we're so economically driven. We're the wealthiest but sickest nation, one of the sickest nations in the world. And we're not even in third world countries aren't as sick as we are, right? We can prop ourselves up with longevity and all these lies. We are miserable. We're locking our grandparents up in old age homes, filling them with medications instead of passing on wisdom to our grandchildren and great grandchildren, like my grandma was able to do, and play cards at 99 years old with their great grandchildren. Like, what happened to that? Yeah, they may be living longer, but my great grandparents lived amazing, especially ones that came from Italy that were in unison with nature, that were in symbiotic relationship. And let's be honest, what our grandparents ate in a Twizzlers and in a hoagie or a dessert or whatever was not the same crap they're eating today. A Mars candy bar 60 years ago isn't a Mars candy bar today. I mean, they're so low in the amount of cocoa, they can't even call it chocolate anymore. And it's full of cheap vegetable oils and sugar instead, higher profit margins once again. So once again, so the reason we do the things that we do, we allow the toxins that we do in our medications, in our vaccines, it makes it less expensive. So here we are, going back to one of the support products that I created is Cyto Detox. So back in the day when we were working with toxic people, period, end of story, we were using DMSA and DMPS. These are double field group crab claw binders. But they're not inert in their body. They don't cross the blood-brain barrier, and they definitely affect your microbiome because of the high sulfur content, and they can also affect they can be stressful to your liver, and sometimes your kidneys as well. And they're not as good as binders, but the best binder in nature that uses ion exchange, it doesn't demineralize. As a matter of fact, it wants only heavy metals, and it'll donate if the product is cleaned properly, like Cyto Detox. I have a patent on the cleaning process. I have a patent on the liposome, and I have a patent on the fragmentation that makes these fragments in zeolite small enough to get into the bloodstream and even support detox at the cellular level, and even support brain detoxification. The size of this is small enough. So what we did to make this a magnet inside of your body to help support your body's natural ability to remove toxins is that we took the toxins out, and that's really important. I wish I had here it is. These little honeycomb cages. And what makes this better than, say, a fulvic acid that everyone touts as a heavy metal product, they have these hydrogen binding sites, these little single negative charges. They call them like carboxy, and they make it all excited, carboxy this, and they're just 1 week binders. As a matter of fact, they're more of a mobilizer. It's like taking a weak magnet and going like this and knocking stuff off versus the permanent binding. And most of the time, because they're a moderate binder, they're also contaminated, right? Not as contaminated as much as a zeolite, but those charges can be reversed. That bound that's in nature to the heavy metals, because there are heavy metals in nature, that can be reversed by microbiology, because this is great for your gut microbiome if you get a clean product. Great for your gut, great for providing minerals, and great for mobilizing toxins and binding a few toxins along the way as well. But they're not a permanent binder like a zeolite honeycomb structure. How it works, it has multiple negative charges, and it uses ion exchange. So it'll exchange out a sodium or a magnesium for a mercury, for a uranium, for a lead, for arsenic. And it can't get that out once it's in there. It's inert. Microbiology doesn't act upon it, and it's not reversible. And it doesn't interact with your biology. It just goes in and out, right? So either you take it and its sizes, and my patent, and I'll read it to you here in a second, has really big cages that stay in your gut. It has smaller cages that are small enough to be inside your bloodstream, so support blood cleansing, and then ones are even smaller that can support even at the cellular level. So that's what this patent did. We cleaned the cages, fragmented them, and then liposomed them in non-GMO sunflower oil. We didn't even use the soybean that a lot of people do for phospholipids. We actually made our liposome. sent our liposome off and had it verified we had liposome, because we'll send off other people's liposomal products. No liposome, Mary. They're not even there. This is our industry. And then there's zeolite products say that their zeolites are cleaned. No patent, of course. I send them off to the lab loaded with heavy metals. They're absolutely lying to people, Mary. And given this is a really strong bond, get it? Not a lot's going to come off, but still some is going to come off, because it can be found out here loosely, because of a broken cage, or, it's interacting in a different way outside of the honeycomb structure. That's a possibility. And it's highly likely, and I've done this, that some of those metals do come off inside the gut by me doing some bench work. So bench studies are studies not done inside a human body, but they're done on a bench, a laboratory. So I've done all the studies with this, and then I'm going to have you tell some more of your stories, but I want to read you the patent. And I've only read this. I've never read this on a podcast. So I have read it online, because I'm trying to get this message out there, Mary. So here's the abstract.
Okay.
Zeolites for the extraction of heavy metals are given enhanced purification. This is our cleaning process. As a matter of fact, this product is so stinking clean at a much higher dose than anything else that's like this on the market. We put a really high dose in here with the fragmented, different size cages. And honestly, I've measured some of these others that aren't fragmented. It's like 50% clay, because clays run with zeolites. It's so inexpensive. The raw material, Mary, it would flip you out. It's cheap, just rocky clay, not even purified crystals. It's like 50% clay, so contaminated with lead. And if it's clay, that stuff comes right off into your bloodstream. It's not heavily bound very well. Clays are not a permanent bind. They are weak. They use ion exchange as well. Very weak ion exchange. So here we go. We clean it off. Okay. Purification in the first method stage, further processed in a second method stage to form liquid and solid phases, including swollen clinoptolite fragments, these small fragments, and solid phases, including, ranging from 200 to 2,000 Daltons. So our study shows these are small enough to cross cellular membranes, down to 200 to 2,000 Daltons. So these are really tiny cages. We have the cages intact. And they're able to, so you're creating all these small little cages that can go around and support your body's natural ability to detoxify. So why you're getting results is because you have a product that has science behind it that was carefully crafted and tested to make sure that it's going to do what it's supposed to do. Because the last thing we want to do is hurt people. And first, do no harm. And that goes for anyone doing or saying anything when it comes to especially kids. 2,000 Daltons and formed as liposomes, usable to substantially reduce heavy metal ppm burdens for the purposes of safe ingestion by mammals and reduction of heavy metal contaminants of gut, vascular, and lymphatic systems of a mammalian host. That's it for me. So that's why I'm pumped, and I'm talking about this this product more and more, and getting. I just don't want to be like, help me, Mary.
Well, we got to get you. I know that you've been at events. You have to have been with Del Bigtree.
Love Del. I have a cell phone number.
Okay. I just interviewed him on the podcast last week. I saw him 2 nights ago, and we were talking about the Inconvenient Study documentary that he just did. And there are multiple physicians in his circle that I think would be amazing to help you and this other doctor that you were working with take these studies and actually make them something that we can publish and then use.
Let's do it. Well, let's make that intro. Can you, I don't want to reach out to, that's where I get upset, is that someone, but then when I reach out to them, even though I have, something real in all this, I reach out and then it's like, it's going to be crickets. Someone just wants something from me. I'm not like that. But Del has been around a long time, and there's so many people wanting his time and attention. He's a famous guy, more famous than Non-Toxic Dad. So third-party validation say, hey, I'm doing this in my clinic. I'm seeing this, and it's patented. You need to reach out to Warren Phillips. I think you know him, the Non-Toxic Dad. He has millions of followers. Use that, credibility. He has millions of followers. and maybe I can get on the phone with Dell, and Dell reaches out to me, and you give him my cell phone number or whatever, and he knows me. I've actually supported some of the things he's done in the past.
Yep.
Some of his movies in the past. I really like Dell. He's a warrior. He's different than me, obviously, but we have different paths, but we're supporting outcomes. Everyone's trying to support outcomes to help people. And
Absolutely.
so I love Dell.
Okay, so we need to help you get a much larger study done so that we can take this to the public and make sure that we are supporting all of our community in being able to detox. So outside of the kids that we work with inside of our office, I frequently get adults that have chronic illness. And we're talking Lyme disease, Epstein-Barr virus, things like that. And they can be working with another provider going through mold detox or, some type of treatment, but they're not using the right binders with these other providers. And we see them when they are so sick. But I'm even finding that the cytodetox is working with those biofilms. It seems to be bringing down their symptoms. So I enjoy this particular product.
Yeah, I'm blessed that it was created to help it fill a need, because they took DMSA away from us back in the day. We weren't able to get it anymore. They stopped all manufacturing of it. There was a law that was passed, and we were using DMSA at the time for supporting heavy metal detoxification in people's bodies. It's like the difference is when you talk gentle, it's DMSA is like a sledgehammer, and this is like a precision ball peen hammer to hit a special nail. Like it's a much gentler and slower process. And when I do my detoxification, I take DMSA because I bought a bunch of it, and yes, it's degraded some, but I still have tons of it. You can get it now on certain websites, but you couldn't for the longest time. So I kept a bunch, and I still have some. I actually partnered with JJ Virgin's company to create DMSA Synergy when she was with Designs for Health, and Jonathan Lizotte and Linda Lizotte. They were good friends of mine back in the day. So we created DMSA Synergy back in the day. So we love that product. And I still take those when I'm on cytodetox because it's a better binder. And even DMSA, which is a pretty strong double thiol group, it has 2 negatives. And then it also has an atomic size in here. I can't think of the name right now, but that matches, because every molecule of mercury, lead, they have an atomic size, and they're bigger and smaller. Uranium's like bigger, and then they also have electron affinity, and then they have their charge, like a +2 charge. That's why zeolites are so great at binding, because they can have 2 negative charges, and a mercury has +2, and so it binds so strongly, you just can't get it out. The process of cleaning this takes days and tons of, you can read the patent on kind of how we do it. I don't want to let the cat out of the bag, but it's a very rigorous process to keep the cages intact, to break the cages down, because when you break down aluminum silicate mineral, you don't want to break it down so much that you're releasing aluminum. And I've done small internal studies on that too, by filtering out the product to see how much free aluminum there is available in the product. And it's a little bit the same as tap water. So we're not delivering aluminum, which is toxic, and they're taking those out of vaccines as well. So it is really cool. And one of the things that I've found in our space is not just the zeolite. And the other cool thing is I did put the micronized, cleaned, and fragmented zeolite inside of True Carbon Cleanse. Okay. So every single time someone's taking these, and I recommend everyone take 4 or 5 of these before bed every day, just to deal with the daily toxins, to break up the hepatic biliary circulation. And it's going to grab some bile. I don't like taking it all the time because it is lowering cholesterol, which is what your body needs for hormones, ladies. Specifically, you have to, it's the building block. It's the backbone of testosterone, estrogen, progesterone, cortisol. You need cholesterol. So you don't want to like lower your cholesterol. This is why statin drugs are the dumbest drug on the planet.
Oh, I hate it when people come in and they're telling me that their doctor had just put them on a statin because their cholesterol's so high. What's your cholesterol? 125? Get off the statin. It would be what I did if it was me.
Yeah, it's nuts, and it's ruining people's lives. Like there's some drugs that keep people alive and great, and there's other drugs that are making people sick. And I think statins are one of them. They have a little bit of an anti-inflammatory effect, but there's really just not a good drug. And the normals, if you look at some of the literature, higher cholesterol, people can live even longer.
Well, your
But
brain needs cholesterol and your
yes,
spinal cord needs cholesterol. Like when we don't have high enough cholesterol, we are deteriorating every aspect of our body.
it's nuts. And this is why the low fat diet, the low fat movement, margarine. When I was raised in the low fat movement,
Mhm.
and I was really sick even when I was younger. So just crazy. So I say all that. If you're doing a biotoxic protocol and you were taking like the cholestyramine, this plastic resin,
Mhm.
you definitely want to be taking more phospholipids while you're taking it. You want to take the like a body bio PC oil or
Mhm.
take have body bio PC is better than like olive oil because it's just different types of fats. But eating fish has a lot of cholesterol, the things that build cells, the things that build hormones.
Mhm.
And so when you're removing that bile, you're actually lowering and pulling out some of the good fats in your body. So
Mhm.
there's a time and a place to take it. I would never take this when carbon does just as good as a job, and the
Mhm.
literature shows it. Tons of literature now. But that's why I like True Carbon Cleanse is to break up the hepatic biliary circulation, especially at night. And this is kind of a trick because your liver has a circadian rhythm, and
Mhm.
part of that rhythm is dumping bile at night. And that bile is reabsorbing toxins. But if you take some carbon, typically around, depending on the person, what I can find in the literature, maybe 3 or 4 a.m. in the morning,
Mhm.
but I think it dumps it a few times. You have what's called a liver dump,
Mhm.
and you have this carbon sitting in there. It takes about 30 minutes for it to travel to the upper small intestine where the
Mhm.
bile is at, but it's going to kind of coat your colon as well. So it's going to be around, and it really helps bind up some of that toxic bile complex. And that's why people see they sleep better at night when they take this, because when you dump at night and you get that cortisol rush,
Yep.
and you're up at night and you're stressed out and your body's like a mess, it's because you had that bile dump at night. I really strongly believe that. And you want to break that bile dump up at night, and you're not taking enough fats out of your body
Mhm.
to lower your cholesterol if you're just taking it before bed. But if you're on a protocol, you definitely want to do, I'm sure and you can speak to the healthy fat protocol because you're not getting these,
Mhm.
autistic kids and seeing improvements without a bunch of healthy fats.
Oh no, we move all of the kiddos that we're working with. We get them off of the processed foods, gluten free, dairy free as much as is possible, no food dyes, sugars, and then we're moving paleo, carnivore, keto type diets with all of these kiddos because we know that we've got to get fat into the brain. We've got to get fat into all of the different organs that need it. And we've got growing kids and we're not giving them enough fat. Well, then we're laying the foundation for Alzheimer's and dementia later on in life because we didn't line the brain and create the myelin sheath so that we can protect the brain throughout life.
So
Um,
important.
yeah.
Yeah, just like the movie where the child, they used the ketogenic diet. I forget the name of the movie. Was it First Do No Harm? I think was the name of the was that the name of the
Remember
movie?
that one?
Um, but they used the ketogenic diet to reverse the child's wasn't autism, seizures, and
Okay.
because it lowers brain inflammation, right? Significantly. And brain inflammation, I think every autistic kid has brain inflammation according to literature, correct?
That is my understanding of it.
Yeah.
And we love Chris Palmer's book, Brain Energy, where he's talking about using keto and carnivore. And he's been doing a research for 25 years using these diets inside of the mental health space. And he's reversed even schizophrenia using these particular diets.
Just getting the brain connected. It's the brain does heal. And I think getting healthy fats, getting into parasympathetic, using
Mhm.
things like pranayama. And if do you know what pranayama? Let me give an example what pranayama is.
I know that it's a breathing technique. It's not something that I use with most kiddos.
Yeah, that would be tough with kids. I can't get my daughters to use it, and they see how much they know it changes my life. Like they see it. They're like, "Daddy, you need to go do some breath work." And we have we homeschool, so we have a gal that comes in to help out in the mornings while Rebecca does school.
Mhm.
And she was telling me, she's like, when you were doing breath work, you were too much in parasympathetic. She's like, I like that you're balancing it out more. But the reason I was doing so much breath work is I had some big shifts in my company. I moved the whole company, just shifted the whole thing to more of a heart centered company. I had to let
Mhm.
go with some people that were in my company for 10, 11 years that I cared about, but I cared more about the mission and what I really wanted to have connect. And it just wasn't an alignment of hearts.
Yeah.
There's doing business. If you just watch, there's what is it? A Wonderful World, the Christmas movie with the angel,
A Wonderful Life.
It's a Wonderful Life.
Yep.
Porter, he was like more like business, right?
Mhm.
Like not that the guy I was working with was like that. He was a heart-centered guy, but it was a little more of like business and numbers. And I'm like, you know what? Not into it. I'm just not into it. Let's run this thing from a heart-centered place and just see where it goes. If it fails, it fails. If it explodes, it explodes. It just doesn't feel right. Not fully giving into that. I call it the quantum Jesus energy. And let's talk about getting into your parasympathetic and tapping in to quantum, because that's really what you're doing. There's evidence that even your hair, this is crazy stuff, and people call it woo-woo. It's made of keratin, but we're energy. We're energetic beings. We are energy and light. We're biophotonic. So when saying this stuff isn't whack, right? It's actually we're in synergy with the electromagnetic fields of the earth, and we're sensitive to this.
The obvious evidence of this to just the general person is you walk into a space to meet someone, and one of two things happens. Either you're comfortable with this person and you feel okay being around them, or you have this immediate feeling of just ick. I don't feel safe with this person. I don't like this person. Maybe the hair on the back of my neck is standing up. We can feel other people's energies inside of any space. And before you ever talk to a person, whether or not your energy aligns with them.
And I wish I listened to my wife more, because she's been right spot on with every relationship I've ever been in, business and otherwise. And she always winds up being on top, because she's like, something wrong with that person. The guy that stole the money from me, she told me, she's like, something wrong with him. Something's not right. He doesn't look me in the eyes right. Something's wrong. And meanwhile, he was doing, nasty things. So that being said, pranayama gets you the number one breath work according to, well, let's call it cyclic sighing, because we Americanized it and took an ancient tradition, probably, I don't know if it might be Hindu, but definitely from India, pranayama, and we call it cyclic sighing. And Harvard research shows that it's a number one way to relax your nervous system, increase your mood, decrease anxiety. It's the number one to do it. And it's very simple to do. You can do it one of two ways. The traditional way of doing it is 2 breaths in through your mouth and then 1 exhale, like you were crying as a kid, which tricks your neurological system. Your little baby goes, and that's all it is 2 breaths in. And this is famous now. There's like the number 2 podcast. This lady's is talking about it now, right? I can't think of her name, but she's just one below on the charts right now. I can't think of her name. Darn it. I need some more healthy fats in my life. Maybe get on the keto diet, because I do remember everything when I'm in ketogenesis for sure. So 2 breaths in, do it for 10, 15 minutes, and you have to trick your brain. Your brain's going to be like, uh-oh, something's going wrong, blah, blah, blah. But what I like to say is the whoosh happens. Eventually, your nervous system relaxes, your body relaxes, everything gets quiet, and you're no longer fear and anxiety and worry just go away, and you just continue it until as long as you want. And you can play relaxing music while you're doing it. You can do it. I've done it as long as a half hour, to the point where my neurological system, I'm essentially getting rid of bad energy, and I can feel energy flowing through my body, coming out through my hands, crying multiple times, getting revelations and ideas and forgiveness, forgiving others. Like, it's crazy what happens. I like to say, when you tap into the quantum Jesus, like, it's really, really special. And if you use it properly, it's just wonderful. The other way you can do it, and this is how they did it in the study, you just do your first 2 initial breaths through your nose. And it's a much gentler way. It's not going to, like to say, send you off into the quantum. It's just going to be a more gentle, relaxing experience for you, and you'll be relaxed. Some people do it when they wake up in the middle of the night, but it's really helped people that are in anxiety and they can't get out of it. It helps them snap them out of it and get back into the reality, so that they can start forgiving and start getting clarity. Because when you're in your sympathetic all the time, you're in fight or flight, and your tone is off. Research shows what that does to your children, because they remember those frequencies and tones. And in their neurology, maybe it's in their myofascia. Like, I'm not a deep researcher. These are things that I'm moving into, but you want to relax into your parasympathetic, so that your heart's open, so that you're more kind, so that you're more forgiving, especially of yourself. So this is a great technique that has been pressed down because Western medicine says take a drug, or Eastern medicine says use breath, which is life,
Yeah.
to calm your nervous system.
Yeah.
You won't, I mean, you could, it'll change your life. It's life-changing technique.
Yeah. So we do breath work with kids, but I do it very, very differently. That is something that I will see if I can get any of them to
What do you
participate.
do? I want to learn from you. What is your technique?
So my first technique with kiddos is actually teaching them how to take a deep breath, because so many kids don't know what that even feels like. There's an adult telling you take a deep breath, but nobody stopped and actually showed them inhaling, making sure that your full belly is coming in and out, like you're breathing all the way in. And I will give them homework assignments with different types of breath work. So we'll have the one where they have to lay down flat and they put a stuffed animal on their belly, and they have to lift the stuffed animal with their belly. And then they know that they're taking their deep breaths the right way, because kids are very visual. So I need to give them something that allows them to see that they're doing it. The other technique that I will use at the very beginning with many kids, especially if I'm working with somebody 10 or over, because they don't want to put a teddy bear on their belly, is I'll actually give them a bubble wand. And we'll talk about the different ways that breath impacts how we're blowing bubbles. If you're blowing too hard and you're not breathing in the right way, then the bubbles come out too quick and they pop. If you're blowing too soft, they don't ever fully form. But if we take a nice big breath in and our belly comes out and we blow out nice, soft and slow, we get fully formed bubbles. So these are good techniques with the age groups that I'm working with.
That's awesome. I love this. I'm going to use these techniques.
Okay. But it's good ways, because we all assume as adults that when we say something to a kid, they just know what we're talking about, but they don't. And I know plenty of adults that don't even know how to take a full breath in. So many adults.
I don't either. My wife yelled at me last night. She's like, "You're not breathing," because I was thinking. I mean, I have a highly active brain, a lot of glutamate going on. I think it's glutamate, and I don't breathe well because you saw me on this call. Like I just don't. Just taking a breath, just teaching how to get a normal breath will relax your nervous system. I mean, that's why I do pranayama, is because it forces me to do that, right? It forces it oxygenates your blood. You get endorphins. Like, it's beautiful. And you can do that just learning to breathe normally. So that's a beautiful thing that you're teaching kids. I remember when I was leaving undergrad to go to graduate school, I asked there's like the secretary over the geology department. She's like, "Can you give me any advice?" She's like, "Warren, you need to learn how to breathe and relax.
Yep.
You don't breathe. Like you're like, all the time. And it's like a dog that's sprinting, right? And you're just like, you're not even like taking deep breaths. You're just gasping for oxygen because you're just overreactive."
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of these children that have neurological challenges, their nervous system is in fight or flight, right? That's why everything bothers them. That's why they're sound sensitive to their mouth sounds if someone's eating,
Yep.
Any sort of sound, is because their neurology isn't calmed down. And breath really relaxes you into the parasympathetic, into rest and digest. That's kind of the popular way to say it. So getting these children to rest and digest, they're going to eat their food. They're going to metabolize food better. They're just going to be overall healthier. Now they can digest the healthy fats for their brain.
Yeah. Well, Warren, I want to say thank you. I want to invite you back on for us to have more of a conversation. I love talking to you. I loved talking to you when we met the first time at HEA. How do people find you? Where are your podcasts, your website, all of those things?
Yeah. So website, Non-Toxic Dad, Instagram handles, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, whatever platform you're on, that's just at Non-Toxic Dad is the handle. My show is Non-Toxic Living on Spotify, Apple, YouTube. It is Non-Toxic Dad is where the podcast lives, because I kind of married those two, but it's on the podcast tab.
Okay.
And yeah, and then I have a book, Non-Toxic Living, which just teaches some of the basic ways to clean up your home and some recipes to make it feasible for everybody. And yeah, I'd love to reach out. If you DM me, I'll DM you back. And it's been an honor to be here.
Awesome. Thank you so much again. And for all of our viewers, thank you for joining us again today. Please remember to like, share, subscribe, and follow.
Take care, everybody.